What's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today's a new day. We're gonna start working on trying to fit the LS engine into the 49 Chevy's chassis, which there's a ton to do. It doesn't just drop in. I was able to order some motor mounts that fit these frame rails perfectly. They're from Murray Kustom Rods, so they're pretty slick. I already bolted them in. They're not bolt-in, they bolt in, then you gotta fully weld them in. So I'll show you guys what I got going on. Yeah, if you guys haven't heard of Murray Kustom Rods, definitely check them out online. They got a sweet website, and they pretty much just sell tons of custom chassis parts and restoration parts for 49 through 54 Chevy cars. So they have a ton of stuff, especially some really trick suspension parts. So as you can see, there's their slick motor mounts that are made just for this chassis. You can see how they like ride right on the flange here. So you're able to bolt them right in. And pretty much where they tell you that the mounts should fit to locate a small block Chevy or even an LS swap right into this car. So that's what we're gonna try to figure out in this video is, are they in the right place? And how much of that firewall I have to trim out, because like I've told you guys before, I have to actually trim out a lot of these support ribs here that are on the firewall. That's all got to be trimmed back. I don't want to completely remove them because I like the look of them. So my plan is to, and I've seen a lot of other guys that have done this swap, they pretty much just cut back a section of it and leave the rib still intact. They kind of will disappear behind the engine there. But I like those being there. They're part of the car. And I've seen some other cars where they get rid of it. And I don't love the whole like smoothed out firewall look. I want to try to retain the somewhat look of an original firewall in there without making it look like it's completely smoothed out street rod style. Don't really like that look. I mean, each to their own, but it's definitely not what I'm going for on this project. So basically where we're gonna start off is just removing, to make it easier to try to drop the motor in and work on it. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the hood off. Pretty much the whole front clip's gonna come back off the car, so I have full access to the chassis. And we'll start trimming back those firewall ribs and make room for this bad little motor. Which if you guys didn't watch my last video, go back and watch it where I did the full assembly on this thing, the final assembly. And we still got a little bit to do on it. Like I want to paint the valve covers black. And I guess that's about it. You guys can see where I got the motor mounts bolted up. So this thing should drop right into those motor mounts there. You know, of course, after I trim the firewall back. So I guess let's just start by getting this front clip off and we can get that motor hooked up to the cherry picker and start seeing where things are gonna fit. All right, so we got the front clip pulled off. As you guys can see, that gives me lots of room to get in there and work and Makes it much easier to try to pull that engine in and out, because I'm sure it's going to need to go in and out a few times before I get everything cut out where it needs to be. So the motor mounts are hopefully exactly where they need to be to drop the motor in, but you guys can see there's no possible way that engine's going back with these in the way here, the ribs. So I guess I could guess and start cutting some of that out, or we could put the engine on the engine hoist and start dropping it in here. And I don't know, that's probably going to be the easiest way to do it. Trying to line up the motor mounts to the engine and then see what's in the way, and then slightly pull it out, trim back what we need to until it fits right. I'd say that's probably going to be the best thing to do. And that way, if we at least get the engine to drop into the motor mounts here, then we can pull it back out, put the trans on it, and start trying to slide the engine and trans up in there. And at least I'll know the engine will fit, and then we'll just have to trim back what we need to on the trans tunnel to make the transmission fit. So I guess that's what we're gonna do next, is start bolting up the motor to the cherry picker and lowering it in there and see where I need to trim. So I guess we'll do that now. All right, so now we can start seeing where the engine does not fit at all. Of course not. You can see where the motor mount is there. So we need to go back at least a good 2.5, 3 inches to get that clamshell to drop over that mount to be where it's supposed to be at. And then you can see back here where the rib is crashing into the cylinder head. So that's kind of exactly where I wanted it to be for now, because now I can come in here and trim exactly what I want off of this rib and down. That way I can retain the top of them. Because I know they're not going to be structural at that point, but I just, like I said, I like the aesthetics of them being there. So now we can kind of mark those ribs and get in there with a body saw and carefully start cutting and trimming that out so the engine can slide back another 2.5, 3 inches. But yeah, it's cool seeing it somewhat in there. All right, so we got that section of the firewall trimmed out. You guys can see, did a nice curve to it. I'm just gonna clean that up with the grinder a little bit, make the edges soft. And same with this right here. This will get trimmed with a nice flow to it. And probably gonna still have to trim a little bit of this off, because the headers come right through here. So I'm gonna leave that there for now, because I know the engine will sit in there. But when we go to put the headers on, I'll probably have to grind that back. I'll even a little more. And you guys can see that's the piece that I just cut out. So not too much. It'll still retain quite a bit of its the body mount right here. So I'm just gonna leave that just like that for now. And then if we have to, we'll trim it back some more, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that to the other side now. And then we can try to fit the engine in again. Oh, Lilly. Nothing, I was just putting her on the, I put her on the channel. It's the shop dog, Lilly. Bill, come here. Look at this. Alright, back to cutting the firewall. Alright, so we got all the firewall pieces cut out. As you can see on both sides, plenty of room there now, or there should be, for the engine to sink all the way back against the firewall. We also took the motor mounts out and cleaned up the steel all around them. I'm going to go ahead and put some nice, decent stitch welds in on top of them for now. I'm not going to fully weld them, just in case I have to actually cut them back out and move something, until I absolutely know that these are where these are going. And once I get the engine and trans in there, and then I'll go back in and fully weld these and paint everything up. But for now, it's just gonna be for mock-up reason to make sure everything fits right. So we're gonna go ahead and get those tacked in. All right, as you can see, we're pretty much there now. Motor mount's super close on this side. We got room back there to clear the block and valve cover. But this side, I mean, I was off by, you can see, look at the coil mount right there on that valve cover is hitting, just slightly hitting the rib on the firewall. So if I would have cut it back up to here, it would have cleared easily. So that's what we're gonna have to do, is pull it back out and just trim that. Other than that, it's pretty much right there. Nice and tucked up tight where I wanted it. So we're gonna go ahead and pull it back out and trim that side, and then we should be good. All right, you guys, finally the LS engine is mounted in the chassis in the car. After all these months of working on the chassis, working on the car, working on the engine, we finally got it mounted in the vehicle. So let me get you guys turned around, I'll show you it up close. All right, oh yeah, I can't believe it, but here it is. I know it was a long time coming, but we finally got the little LS motor mounted in the vehicle. It looks sweet too. I'm so pumped about it. The motor mounts worked out great. I did, like I said, I did have to trim quite a bit out of the firewall back here, but I retained most of the factory ribs like I wanted to, because I just love the look of still having those factory ribs behind the motor. They just look like they should in this vehicle. I know a lot of guys get rid of them, but the cars I've seen where they just trim it off like this, I think that just looks better. And you know, we'll get all this stuff cleaned off the firewall, a lot of the heater hoses, and I may still use the factory air duct for fresh air coming in here. I haven't decided yet, but for now those are staying. But eventually I'll get that all cleaned up and blacked out, just like the chassis. But man, look at that thing and sitting in there. It looks so sweet. Let me show you the up close shots of the motor mounts, so you guys can see. All mounted up. They fit really well if you guys are ever thinking about running a small block Chevy or a doing an LS swap into your 49 through 54 Chevys. Man, these things, they literally just, you bolt them into a factory bolt hole and it puts the mount exactly where it needs to be for this engine, for the setback. And it couldn't have gotten easier. So they're not bolt in by any means. They're bolt in to get them into the right position, and then you have to go through and fully weld them all along the perimeter. But for now, I just did a couple of really heavy tacks in here. Some like 3/4 inch stitch welds there on both sides. Just because I wanted to make sure, I wanted to get the motor into the vehicle and have everything sitting in there. And just so I know everything's where it should be before I fully weld those in. So for now, right now, I don't have a transmission on it. It's just, I got it ratchet strapped in there, holding up the back of the motor. Because it's gonna have to come back out of the car. And I gotta put the trans on it and then stab it back in there to make sure that the trans tunnel isn't gonna interfere with the transmission. So that'll be the next video, is pulling it back out, cleaning up my transmission over there, and then putting it back in, I guess, for, you know, the time being. So my plans are for this whole thing is to get the engine, the trans sitting in it. I've got to order my rear suspension still and get that, the step notch in place while the body's on the chassis. So I know exactly where everything's gonna fall. And then once I get the step notch put in, I can go ahead and pull this body off the chassis and then do a complete restoration on the whole chassis. So I can do all the finish welding on the rear 3-link, which I said in the last video, I'm gonna order the Murray Kustom Rods 3-link for the back, the air ride setup. And I've got a little bit more welding to do on the front suspension. We gotta put in the shocks and the shock mounts and weld those in. But I'm not gonna do any of that until I get the body off the frame and I can fully restore the whole thing. And then, like I said, drop the whole drive line in. That rear end's gonna get some work done to it. I gotta put that back in, obviously, when I do the 3-link. And just do a complete restoration, mechanical restoration on the chassis. And then I'm gonna put this body back on it pretty much the way it is. Because my plans are for this car is to kind of just leave the body ratty. It's gonna have some patina on it. And I'm not gonna go through and like do all the sheet metal work on the outside, make it look all perfect. This car is not gonna be like that. It's gonna be a little kind of a rough rat rod body on it, but I wanna make sure that all the mechanicals are top notch and safe. So eventually I'm gonna just end up sanding through all this white paint back down to the factory green color. I mean, not all of it, but I'm just gonna kind of do like this is the factory green color, which I wish they wouldn't have put the white over it because I like that way better. But I'm gonna sand through all this white back down to the green and just leave it all kind of sanded and the green coming through the white and just do that kind of, that patina look to it. At least for now, and then I can get it on the road and mechanically shake it down this summer and make sure that the car's safe and everything's solid on it. And then, I don't know, I might end up painting it and making it look pretty, but I'll probably end up falling in love with the ratty patina look, so. And that's, I mean, I like that look, that's most important, but a lot of people also are into the patina look these days. But hell yeah, I can't even believe that the engine is sitting in it now. It's bolted in. The LS swap is sitting in the car. Yes. So happy about that. Man, it just looks so cool sitting in there. So that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. Just wanted to get the engine mocked up in the chassis. We got the mounts welded in. And that's pretty much it, you know, which is a huge step for this car. I love seeing the LS sitting in it. It looks so tough. I mean, look at this thing. It looks so cool aired out with that motor sitting in it. Hell yeah. Can't wait to fire this thing up and hear it too with that cam chopping. It's gonna be good. So that pretty much wraps up this video. Hope you guys liked it. And you know the usual, shoot me some comments on what do you think about the build. You loyal viewers, I just want to thank you again. Channel's growing really fast, and I love all your guys' comments that you're leaving me on the project. Super cool to interact with you guys. And if you're new to the channel, shoot me some comments on it. You can go back and watch a lot of the other build videos on this car. There's quite a few on there now, where it came from. It's come a long ways already. And yeah, so stay tuned for the next video. We'll be pulling that motor back out, putting the trans on it, dropping it back in. And like I said, we got a lot of more content coming on this thing. It's gonna be sweet. So I will see you guys on the next video. Later.